Did you ever wonder how the universe was created? There's a scientist, a prominent scientist, who has become famous because he insists that schools should teach creation alongside evolution. And his arguments is that evolution does not really explain the universe sufficiently, and that creation fills in the blanks. For example, he says, evolution means bringing together one ingredient at a time, all of the necessary ingredients until you have a universe. The problem with that theory is that certain things could not possibly come to be if you put it together one ingredient at a time. Human blood, for example, has 13 ingredients, and if you take each one separately and add them to the mix, you'll never come out with blood. It'll never turn into human blood. All 13 ingredients have to arrive at the same moment. So evolution does not describe the existence of human blood. He was on the radio talking about this, and people were calling in with all sorts of scholarly observations and questions, and it was a very intelligent discussion. Until some guy calls up and he says, do you know that ancient people in the olden days believed in God because of thunder? They heard thunder and they said, who could make a noise like that? Must be God. He says to this professor, are you not doing the same thing? You're saying that God had to have created the world, because otherwise, how do the 13 ingredients of blood come to be when they need to be all at the same time? That proves there's a God? No, it just proves that you don't know. So from what you don't know, you cannot draw conclusions. Wait, study it a little more, you'll figure it out. So the lack of explanation can't be used as proof. All it means is that you don't know. Then it must be God. That is not a logical conclusion. The scientists are determined to discover how the universe came into existence. They do not like the question, why is there a universe? They say that's not science, that's philosophy. But listen to this problem. We all agree that the world was created out of nothing. The universe came into existence out of nothing, which means first there was no universe, now there is. We all agree on that. Evolution agrees about that too. The universe did not always exist. So the question is, if it came out of nowhere, how does nothing become something? We also have to agree that at the beginning, there was no universe, but there must have been something to start the process. The best theory in evolution is that there was a collision of sorts, there was an explosion, and the rest is history. But in order to have a collision or an explosion, you have to have two ingredients, like subatomic particles and gases. And when they collided, the world was born. It doesn't really make sense to say that it all started with two things. Which of the two came first? We don't want to go there. We don't want to ask that question. Why? Because once we figure out which one came first, we're going to have a problem. There's one thing that just exists because it's true. It doesn't have to be created. It's an eternal existing thing. And it existed forever, not 16 billion years, forever. And then 16 billion years ago, something happened. No. If there's only one thing, nothing happens. So in the beginning, there was a subatomic particle. And that's all there was. And what happened? Nothing happens when you have one ingredient. So they had to start with two, even though that doesn't make sense. What do we say? In the beginning, there was just God. Yeah, and then there was an internal combustion. God wanted something. Do you see why God makes more sense? If there is only a particle, then there's only a particle, and that's the way it's going to be forever. But if in the beginning there was a God, that means a being with an opinion, with a desire. Well, that explains it. He exists forever, but he desires to create a world, so he created the world. Now, if you're going to say, well, there was a subatomic particle, and it wanted to create the world. Is that a good theory? Yeah, it's a very good theory. But why are you calling it a particle? If there's a particle that has a desire, you just described God. You want to call him a particle? Call him a particle. But you just described God. So the first thing we know about creation is that it was the result of a desire. Because whatever you want to call that original being, if there was no desire, nothing would happen. God was in a very comfortable place. There was just him. He was the only thing. There was no problem. There was no complaints. So why did he disturb that very peaceful, comfortable, pleasant condition? Because he wanted something. Not because something else collided with him. There was nothing else. So there's a traditional example used to prove that God created the world. Because, as one of the sages said, if I would tell you that a book came into existence by a bottle of ink spilling and drying into the words of the book, and it just happened to dry into intelligent words with intelligent sentences, intelligent paragraphs, chapters, all the logic, the reason, it just happened to dry that way, but the bottle just spilled. Would you believe that a bottle spilling can dry in the form of an intelligent book? You would say, no, that's not possible. Somebody must have written the book. It can't happen by itself. That's really not the proof at all. It can't happen? It can't happen? 1 million monkeys typing on 1 million typewriters for 1 million years. Can a book come out of that? Not likely. But impossible? Not impossible. The real proof of that example, if I would tell you, in the beginning there was just a bottle of ink. Yeah, and then what happened? Well, it spilled and created, dried in the form of a universe. Would that be an acceptable answer? No, because I don't understand why it spilled. It's not that it can't dry into a book. It could. But if there was only a bottle of ink, what do you mean it spilled? What caused it to spill? Oh, the wind knocked it over. Well, there was no wind. Some clumsy, klutzy guy bumped into it. There was no guy. So what proves that somebody wrote the book is because the bottle of ink would not spill if there was only a bottle of ink, unless the bottle of ink wanted to write a book. Why else would it spill? What knocked over the bottle of ink? Nothing. Then why is there a universe? If you don't understand why the universe exists, you don't understand the universe. So yes, it is a scientific question, and the scientist must deal with this question. So what's going to happen before Mashiach comes that is going to transform the world? this question. You can't avoid it forever. Otherwise, you have a theory with two things bumping into each other. That's childish. What's going to happen when the scientist asks, so why? You're going to come to the conclusion that whatever created the universe was purposeful. Rambam says that when Mashiach comes, the entire world will have only one interest and one pursuit, and that is to get to know God. How does he know that? Where is that written? It doesn't have to be written. It is just so unavoidably logical. When we discover and realize the universe exists for a reason, we're going to want to know what that reason is. So if the Creator created the world for a reason, well, what's the reason? And as we get to know God's reason, we're getting to know Him. How do you create a universe? What, you want to try? You want to create a universe? You need to know how? No. But if the question is, why is there a universe? That is the most relevant question ever. Why are we here? Problem with scientists, they will ask, why are we here? But what they mean is, the universe is perfect, nature is wonderful, everything's great until the human being comes on the scene and just messes everything up. We are the clutter of the universe. Without human beings, the universe would be perfect. The Torah says the exact opposite. Without us, the universe would be unnecessary and would stop existing. What a difference.